right, this is the Diversity, Race, Equity, and Inclusion Subcommittee meeting today, Wednesday, December 9th, 2020, 6 p.m. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and state of emergency, on March 12, 2020, Governor Baker issued an executive order temporarily suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL. Public bodies are temporarily relieved from the open meeting law's requirement that meetings be held in public places, open and physically accessible to the public, so long as measures are taken to ensure public access to the body's deliberations through adequate alternative means. This meeting will be held and will be accessible to the public via Brockton Community Access, Brockton Public Schools website, www.bpsma.org, YouTube, and Comcast Channel 12. The agenda for today is Civil Rights Training, update on First PD workshop, the Nellie Mae Grant, district review on diversity and equity, and then other business. I just have to do a roll call, make sure everybody on the subcommittee is here. Tom Minicello.
Here.
Tony Rodriguez.
Here.
And Cynthia Rivas-Mendes is here. So we'll start with the Civil Rights Training. Sharon Walder is going to inform us on it. Sharon?
Good evening, everyone. Every school year, the Brockton Public Schools is mandated to complete a civil rights training, and that includes all educators who go through the training that comes out of my office. And I'm actually going to put up on the screen, if you can allow me to share my screen, just some of the slides that are within that training so I can talk to you as we go through. I don't think you're able to see my screen yet.
We see it now, Sharon.
Thank you. So as I stated, every year at the beginning of the school year, from the Office of Student Support Services, educators are provided with a training that they do independently, as well as trainings that happen within the school. So part of our mandate is to make sure that as a district, we do civil rights training with people, with the principals. The principals then are responsible for leading civil rights training in their schools, and we follow it up with a training that allows people to go through each of the areas independently, and there is a required sign-off both at the school level, at the district level for the trainings that we provide, and then the civil rights training that is conducted through this process. And part of what we want to make sure that people understand is that it is mandated. It is mandated of all educators, and it does require that people read, respond to some questions, and provide a signature that they've completed the training. And again, this is in addition to that first meeting that principals have, where they also go through the civil rights of students and the responsibilities of educators. And the areas that are covered are Title VI. We also cover McKinney-Vento, Title IX, the ADA, Title II, and 504. So anything related to special education, homelessness in terms of the rights of students who are identified as homeless, Title IX, all of those are covered under this. We also make sure we review with everyone the 51A requirements as mandated reporters. We go through a review of bullying and harassment. We also make sure we cover confidentiality that students have a right to through FERPA, review due process, and we are also mandated to inform people of the restraint laws through the Department of Education. And so what we made sure that we did was to include in the areas where the school committee has policies related to civil rights, we included those links so that we could give the brief description. For example, in this case, Brockton Public Schools non-discrimination. And I did explain what non-discrimination means according to the Brockton Public Schools, and then allow people to connect to the link on our website that connects them directly to the policy. The same for equal opportunities, identifying again the policy, the link, and defining exactly what it means for our students. And this year, one of the things that we added was definitions, because we wanted to make sure that everyone was working from the same definitions, and we used the definitions from the Anti-Defamation League, and we connected people to the link directly there that has a number of terms that are vital to education, vital in general, but certainly to educators. And then we went into explaining what Title IV and Title VI are. One obviously related to desegregation, and the other related to the treatment of students in schools. We added the Gender Identity Act because we wanted to make sure that this was also an area that was covered and connected people directly there to the law related to the Gender Identity Act. Again, McKinney-Vento is an area that we have a significant amount of information. It updates regularly, so we have to go back and make sure any changes to this law that we keep it updated, and that we have it on our website and can give people access to where to find it on the website. And I'm going through this in this way because you have all been presented the full presentation, and so you have all of that information with you. But I just wanted to make sure that we spent a little bit of time going over it so that people can see what's in the civil rights training that we do in the Brockton Public Schools. Title IX is here, and again connects to gender identity and gender bias, and making sure that we have things in place to avoid that and to support students. And our special education, which you've heard, all of you have heard from Lori Mason, who covers it incredibly well, along with our attorney, Paige Tobin. We consistently keep you updated on special education mandates, laws, and what is happening in the field of special education. But what we also need to do is make sure that we are informing all of our educators, whether they have students with disabilities in their classes or not. They need to know and understand the laws related to special education, as well as 504s. And again, you see we provide a number of links to state, federal, and Brockton Public Schools so that people can get additional information as they choose. Mandated reporting 51As, as I said, as mandated reporters, it is important for us to review with everyone what that responsibility requires. And especially during the time of remote learning, it was significant to review that and to work with DCF on what and how to report while we are in this remote setting. We also provide information on bullying and cyberbullying, definitions, and then again, links to additional information, as well as links to Brockton Public Schools, because on our website there is information that allows people to anonymously report bullying, to get services, and so that link is also there. And we give definitions and then provide information about the differences between bullying and harassment. And again, with the links to what Brockton Public Schools provides on harassment and reporting harassment. And as you know, FERPA is the act that determines how much information we are able to provide and who we're able to provide it to regarding our students. And so we want to always make sure we're reminding people of the students' rights in terms of their records and information shared. We also review and go through the rights of students, their due process rights when it relates to discipline or suspension. And as mandated by the Department of Education, we also define and explain physical restraint. Once people have gone through the training, they are mandated to go to the sign-off. We are asked by the Department of Education at times to submit the names of everyone in the district who has completed the training. And during our CPR review, which we're going to talk about a bit after this, the CPR review is the coordinated program review that we go through every 3 years, basically, a full one at 6 years and then partial one at 3 years. And we are required to submit evidence that we are doing this as we should, and that we have signatures from those who have completed the trainings. And as I mentioned, part of this is connected to the civil rights review that we go through with the Department of Education. You are all very well versed on the district review because you've just lived through it with us. But prior to the district review, we participated in our civil rights review, our tiered focus monitoring mid-cycle. And you can see the years there that they were here, they visited the reports, and then the corrective actions, the areas of corrective action. And so some of those areas are related to the civil rights of students with disabilities. Some of them are related to civil rights in general in terms of access. And they focus primarily on students who are in our alternative programming and their access to resources in education. So what came to light through that under our civil rights, the Criterion 24, was that our district did not have a structured way for every educator to assess their own curriculum and instructional materials for bias or lack of representation. And so that was an area that after they came out, visited, reviewed all the documents in the same way they do with the district review in this particular area, they found that we had some corrective actions that we had to take related to this area. And what we saw as part of that was that we didn't have a policy that specifically spoke to this. We have policies about providing students access, but we don't have a policy specifically focused on requiring this level of detail in assessing what we're teaching. And so the Diversity Education Steering Committee took this on, and that committee started in 2017 when I took the job of Chief Officer of Student Support Services. It was an area that I knew our district needed to target and focus on. And so this committee was developed not for this corrective action. The committee existed before that. We were developing diversity workshops and professional development within the district. But when this came out, It was an area that the desk took on as an area of focus for them. And so part of a training that we did with principals allowed them, and all administrators, allowed them to take a look at what was in the corrective action, what the mandate was, and to provide some input on what's missing, what do we need. And so the Diversity Education Steering Committee is almost all teachers and every grade level is represented, went back and created the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Checklist. We conducted that training December using a train the trainer model, and then those trainers went out to the schools and conducted the trainings in all of the schools in January, because we had to provide the Department of Education, as one of our deadlines, evidence that, one, it was created, and two, that we had actually taken our educators through the process of learning. And so that was done. And then, of course, we all know that we shut everything down. And so when the district review came out and they had visited our school system prior to the shutdown, one of the areas of accolades was that people were well versed in equity. And so it was followed by a comment that though people could speak about it, they didn't see a lot of evidence of it. And this is part of the reason why we had just done these workshops, but before we could start doing any implementation, they were visiting us. And so the next step was not able to happen, because shortly after that we shut down. However, the Diversity Education Steering Committee continued to work and revised the checklist and the training. And we started this school year with that checklist in the revised version, which we provided for you at a previous time as well. And here's the area that we just met with the Department of Education, and I have a meeting on December 18th to go back and review again, and that is how our institutions are assessing our students' equal access and opportunities for the programming that we have. And again, as I said, that was focused primarily in the beginning on our students who are in alternative programming. And when we met, it's obvious that some of the things that they were looking at, especially the extracurriculars, we aren't running those things at this time for anyone. And so there was a expectation that we instantly shift to other things. And so I have a meeting about that to determine exactly what that shift will look like and what tool we can create that, regardless of what programming we're assessing, we have a tool that we can use. So that covers the work that we have done with civil rights and some of the work that we've done with the Diversity Education Steering Committee and the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion checklist that educators have access to and have been trained on. I'm at this point able to take any questions you may have.
Hi, Sharon. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm very good. A little cold today, though. I cannot get warm. My nose has been cold. My fingers, my hands have been cold. Oh, I can't get warm. But as an aside, so what is the reaction, I guess, to how do the teachers and educators feel after they take these this program? Especially obviously in our district. We have a predominantly, Caucasian teaching, staff. So I mean, what do you observe in terms of, how they accept this, or how they, what are their thoughts and feelings, and after the program?
So, what we have observed is, especially from where I am, when we first started doing this work with principals, we anticipated that there would be some levels of discomfort. Because it is new, it's different, and oftentimes when you mention diversity, equity, inclusion, people automatically associate it with being racist or racism. And so there's this intensity that happens in this, kind of fight, flight, freeze response that some people oftentimes experience. And so there's a point at which you just have to be okay with things are going to be uncomfortable for a while. And once you get past that discomfort, you are able to communicate and move forward. And so, and it's new, it's different. And people oftentimes think it means that they don't have the best intentions, or it's purposeful. And sometimes it's about learning something new, something different, and taking and acknowledging that we all have biases and blind spots, and being able to work through those things so that we can do a more equitable job at the education that our students are receiving, and then looking at our data to see that access to higher level classes, the suspension rates, the things that we are assessed on that show how students are doing and can be broken down by subgroups. When we look at that data and we see that there are disparities, we can then have real conversations about why those things exist, without it being about blame, without it being about any of that. It turns into, how do we, as the people who have chosen the field of education, work together to resolve and to improve some of the conditions that we're seeing. So there were some who were ready for it, already doing it, very comfortable with it. There were others who were a little uncomfortable, and the same, within schools. And part of what we wanted to make sure we were doing is really targeting and supporting the leaders of the schools first, because in the end, they have to lead the work in their buildings. They have to assess how well it's going, and they have to support it. And so we started with principals and assistant principals and associate principals, and added administrators for that very reason. And when we got to the place where we developed the checklist, we asked those leaders to then send us groups of people within their school to either come with them or send them to be trained by the members of desk in order to go back and lead the work in their schools. And so, as with anything, there are people who are going to be comfortable, and there are people who are going to be uncomfortable. And I think what we've seen in May, June, and throughout the summer related to social justice issues that are directly related to race, and how it played out in our society as well as within our own community, there is a level of intensity that people have around this subject. Either let's fix it, or I'm uncomfortable with it. And those are natural human responses to things. But we have to continue to work with people and move past our discomfort to solving some of the problems.
Well, and I think that you have the perfect tone for this. I love having you at the helm of this, because you have the perfect demeanor, and I just think that yeah, it's definitely an uncomfortable subject, and I guess for some people, and because we're unfamiliar with it, you know what I mean? We're unfamiliar with it, and on one hand, like when I look at it quickly and hear people talk about the issues, my first reaction is like my gut reaction is, well, you're trying to make things easier for kids. You're trying to lower the standards. You know what I mean? You're trying to water things down. The real world is the real world is boom 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 boom. Are we really preparing kids for the real world if we're if we're holding hands? And but then you have to sort of take inventory of reality and issues. So yeah, I mean, you gotta, I guess, have self-reflection, but having you in charge of it is a good thing, because you're just right on point with everything. Usually, always, I guess. What, 99.9% of the time.
I don't know about that, but I appreciate you saying that, and I want to make it clear that this is about actually increasing expectations for kids and believing that regardless of background, language, experience, that you can and will do more, and we're going to support that work. So some of this is about breaking down mindsets about what it means when you hear someone who English is not their first language, not to make the assumption that somehow that less is required. When you think about what it takes to communicate and learn and evolve in multiple languages, the skills that takes, we need to honor that and support and guide that. Even if we only speak one language, just knowing what it takes to do multiple things, we have to start taking a look at it in a different way. And
I couldn't agree more. We talked about that last night, you know, with the grade. You were part of the discussions last night, right? I mean, I mean, the grades, you know, they're horrendous in some areas. And the point I've been trying to make is that, just like you're saying, you know, ELL students, we have to figure out a way to present the information, present, you know, the work, you know, in a way that's fair, like you said, fair and equitable. Well, it's not fair to, you know, present it like, you know, just a normal gen ed Brockton kid like myself who was here forever, and then, you know, to some kid coming in from a different place. I mean, we have to, and then to, yeah. So I see what you're saying, but yeah, it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot of effort, but I think that we're always up for the effort. So with good people working together, you know, we will do what we need to do. I'm sure of it.
And one of the nice things, since this is the 4th year for the Diversity Education Steering Committee, and the first year we had 12 applicants. The second year we had 14. The third year we had 14 again. This year we had 50 applicants. And so there is a shift. People are seeing the work that's being produced out of that committee, and they want to be part of it. There's a shift in thinking about how to work with and support the students that we have in the community. We all acknowledge that our community, it looks different from, I moved here in 1994, and the community has, the demographics of the community have changed since I've been here. And so in those changes, it requires that sometimes we have to take that step back, because there are things about people who come from different places, different backgrounds, that we haven't had a chance to learn ourselves. And you can't know everything about everyone, but you can start approaching things through a lens of they're bringing something really valuable to the table. So opportunities to hear and learn from them, how best to connect to their learning style, to their needs, is a direction that it's important for us to go in. And that's part of the work of this committee, which is why I was so thrilled when the committee said we want to invite students to be part of it, and not in the way that we've included students in the past to just give us an update on how things are going, but to be part of a conversation and to share with us what's working, what isn't, what they need, so that as we're developing things, we're really doing it, giving them agency and voice and some level of responsibility in their own education in a way that we traditionally have not.
Very, very, very well said. Thank you, Sharon. Appreciate it.
Sharon, I think we're going to talk more about this after we talk about the district review. But can you talk a little bit more about the CR 24 and what are some next steps that the district has been thinking on taking from the review that the rating was partially implemented?
So for the work that the Diversity Education Steering Committee has done, that was, again, going back to the equity, diversity, and inclusion checklist and making it more meaningful and more in-depth. The feedback that we got from educators after they completed that training at the beginning of the school year was the need for more resources and more support in developing of lesson plans. Those were the two areas that ultimately people who responded had the greatest amount of need. So how do we get access to more resources so that we can have the things that will allow students to have those mirror opportunities, meaning when they're reading something or learning something, they can actually see themselves or their cultures represented in it. They oftentimes have window opportunities where they're learning about something or someone else, but they don't see themselves in it. And so where can we bring in those resources that will give our students more opportunities to see something that reflects their own lives and experiences in what they're learning? And so people have asked for those things. And then once we have them, how can educators best implement those things in their classrooms so that it's not marginalized or just an add-on, but it is really authentically integrated into their curriculum. And so those are areas of work that the committee is developing and working on. And one of the things that I think as a district we should have is a policy that says that this is work that we recognize as important, necessary, and it speaks to a commitment to make sure it is being done. And once it's in policy, then it becomes part of the foundational work that we do in this district.
Thank you. Does anybody in the committee have further questions? Okay, we'll move on to point number 2, the update on the first PD workshop. I think, Sharon, that's you again.
That is, I'm sorry. I was like, okay. So the update on the first PD workshop meeting with Manuel and Amina, is that the update we're referring to?
Yes.
Okay, so as you all met Manuel Fernandez and Dr. Amina Pilgrim at our first meeting, and they talked about their connection to the district and some of the work that they would be doing. The superintendent and I met with them multiple times to establish what that work would look like, and it started with on November 16th, both of them doing a presentation for the entire district. And if the equity diversity presentation that they presented pretty much gave an overview of the work related to anti-racism and how to be culturally responsive in classrooms. It was an hour and a half long. People got to ask some questions, but because it was so short, and it was designed to be that way, just to do an introduction of the work that they would be doing in the district and the work that is continuing to happen in the district, and to support the work of the diversity education steering committee in terms of that checklist, so that people are getting access to more learning opportunities. And so that took place on the 16th. It was well received, and people wanted more. And obviously, those kinds of setups are difficult because when every educator in the district is on the meeting, it doesn't allow for that back and forth that you'd like to be able to have. It is more of a lecture style with some comments through the chat being read into and responded to during that training. And so that piece of it happened. Followed at the beginning of December, we started the cohorts that they were going to do. They have 3 cohorts running 8 weeks. Each session is about 2 hours, and they have 15 people in each of the cohorts. And so that is now more intensive work that they're doing with 45 of the educators in the district. And this is week 2 of that. So I believe the first week went really well. I've heard from a couple of the people who attended how powerful it was and how excited they were to be in it. And I've had quite a few others asking how they can get into it. So we will run another round of cohorts once this is done after February vacation.
That's awesome. The fame's already happening that people definitely want to join. I have to say, I did join. I was able to join the keynote, and I saw how many educators were able to engage in the chat. Yeah, it wasn't ideal the setup that it was, because it was more like a webinar style. But I thought that people were very engaging when they talked about how has race and culture affected our lives, and how can we bring that back into the students. Like how can we connect with students and the work that we do with students. So I think it's very important, because like Tom has mentioned, like these are times that you're able to self-reflect so you can prepare for action. So I was very grateful to be part of that and really see that level of engagement among the educators of Brockton. Also, just to add, similar to what Amina and Manuel are doing in the cohorts, that's something that they want to do with the school committee. So just to put in the radar, I've mentioned it before, but it'll be like a 6-hour session. So ideally, it would be great if we do have a retreat in January, if we can take part of that time or most of it, or decide what 2 evenings or weekend would work, so they can come in and give us that training. So something that we've mentioned before, but we need to decide on some dates and times. Any questions from the committee? Oh, we can move on to the next point, the Nellie Mae grant.
So the Nellie Mae grant, and the superintendent is going to join me on this one. But the Nellie Mae grant, as you all know, we received it, very excited about it. I believe the Enterprise was working on an article about it that will probably come out soon. But that was the $250,000 that allowed us, that really supports the work that we're doing. And it allowed us to move forward right away with the development of the Office of Equity and Diversity. And so Dr. Moran and I have worked on collecting some job descriptions from other areas, districts that have them within the state and outside of the state, so that we could really look at the expectations of those positions and tie it back to what we're hoping to do within our own district with that position. And as the superintendent and I have talked, it's developing a 3-year plan. So it's not just 1 year, bring someone in and expect them to know and understand and do everything in the district related to the work, but to really have a vision for how it will roll out over the next 3 years. So it gets established in a way that it's really effective in supporting the work that is happening out of human resources, out of the Office of Teaching and Learning, and out of the Office of Student Support Services. So it's connected to so many areas in the school system that we want to make sure that that it's written and developed in that way, and that we, on the other hand, are supporting it so that it can do the work that we're hoping for as we move forward. And the funding will also cover some curriculum resources and some instructional work that we're doing. We've already started with June, and I have already started to meet with a group of people related to social justice curriculum and financial literacy curriculum, which is a social justice issue. And so the funding is supporting that work, as well as the work that Manuel and Amina continue to do in the district. So Mike, I don't know if you want to add more about the position.
I just, again, I want to thank Karen Watts, and then the Diversity Task Force for the amount of work they put into applying for the grant, which was a very quick turnaround, maybe 2 weeks. I think they had to put it all together. And also Dr. Pilgrim and Manuel for their support because I know that they talked to Nellie Mae and they did support us in our application for that grant. So again, this is a position I've been talking about with, Sharon, and it's a goal of mine as a superintendent to have. And I think this office is, is going to transform the work we do in the school department. But it's not only an important position, but like Sharon said, it's about building an office because it has so many. It has to connect to pretty much every office in the school district. And not only is this big for the school department, but it's also it's a really great thing for our community because this office will also do work with outside agencies that support families. The mayor's office, and we really, that's why Sharon said it's important to have a real clear 3-year plan with set goals to make sure this office grows into what it really can become.
So I know today we wanted to vote to direct the funding so we can move forward.
Yeah, so we would we would ask this committee to make a motion to forward this executive director of the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion for approval to the Finance Subcommittee.
Would anybody be able to make that motion?
I would make it, Cynthia, but I don't think I'm allowed.
I know, I was thinking the same thing.
Thank you. Tom, Tony, Mr. Rodriguez, Mr. Minicello, can any of you make the motion to move forward with the funding to be able to hire? Or what is it exactly, Mike? Sorry. How would
It would be for us to forward the position of Executive Director of the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion to forward that position to the Finance Subcommittee for approval.
I make the motion as stated by the superintendent to forward the position for the school committee's consideration. And what is the exact title, Michael? Could you just, the executive director of
the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion.
Of the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. Yep. So I make that motion, please.
Second.
Is there a second? Does Tony second it? I hope.
Yeah, Tony just seconded. Thank you.
Okay. That was a low second, wasn't it, Cynthia? That was a quiet second. Okay.
All right, thank you. So
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the Nellie Mae grant? All right, so the next thing I wanted to talk about was the district review on diversity and equity. I did send a few notes according to what we have spoken about. I just wanted to highlight a few glows and a few growth. So one of our biggest glows, which Shannon did mention while she talked about civil rights training, is from the work that has happened in the district. We were recognized for taking initial steps where we've been increasing the staff's understanding of issues related to equity and diversity. But they did make a note that educators are in the early stages of making curricular resources more culturally relevant and representative of the diversity in the school community and ensuring that school environments are more welcoming to all student groups. So I know that was mentioned specifically when Shannon talked about educators talking about needing more resources and support in developing curriculum. So I think it's something that in the self-evaluation, educators have responded that they know this is something that they would like more support in. And then also the district was a glow that we had as well was a commitment to recruit, support, and retain more highly qualified teachers and administrators. So those were our glows. And I think those are important to note that we are moving forward with this work. But some growth was mainly on access to less restrictive environment, specifically that not all students are being ensured that they're having equitable access to be able to have a range of rigorous coursework and learning experiences. And that was talked a little bit about when ELs, right? What are our biases with ELs and what are we provide, not just ELs, but that was just mentioned earlier, and how we don't want to require less of them because they may not speak the language proficiently, but how do we honor those skills and give them the support to be able to have those high expectations in their learning experiences. Also, instructional policies have not been updated since 2002 or 2004. That was a note made, and that staff members have not created a culture engagement and reflection that includes reviewing data objectively and considering the personal and collective responsibility for students' access by focusing on external factors such as budget challenges rather than analyzing data and focus on improving teaching and learning. District leaders have lowered expectations for themselves and students have not recognized their power to improve all students' performance, opportunities, and outcomes. I think this is where the discomfort happens, right? When the discomfort happens, like, oh, this is what I think you should improve in. But I think from what Shannon has informed us, it's things that the Diversity Steering Committee and the Diversity Task Force has realized these are the things that we want to work on. She did talk about a policy, recognizing it as necessary. So we could have something where educators have something to base on. So I'm not sure how to move that forward. If anybody can educate me, how do we move a policy forward if we wanted to do more of a curriculum policy on where educators can check their bias and make the instruction more culturally relevant to the students they serve? How would that be moved forward?
We would start the discussion in a policy subcommittee meeting.
Okay, would
Yep.
that be something that can be?
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
We can have Melinda work. I think it's Mr. DiAugustino's the vice chair, so we can. It's a committee of the whole, so we can have that meeting scheduled.
Okay. Any comments or questions?
So Cynthia, is there any, do you recommend for us to do some research around current policies that we can actually provide to school committee members that will be helpful, like template policies or policies that are as known to be, obviously robust and that we could, work off of?
Yeah. I definitely agree. We shouldn't reinvent the wheel. These
Yep.
are things that it's mandated by the state and other districts
Yep.
have been able to push through. So I think that would be a great starting point, Mike, for sure.
Yeah, and I'll have Alyssa Haggerty work with MASC and see if they have a policy out there. Again, that's a template policy that we can all obviously look at other policies across other school districts and also look into some in other states as well. I forget, somebody sent me, was it you, Cynthia, that sent me the report from New York? I forget who sent me that. Maybe it might have been Dr. Pilgrim. It was New York Public Schools has their faults, but they actually have an amazing report on equity and diversity. I'll see if I can find it. It's hundreds and hundreds of pages, but it is very, very well done. It takes a long time to go through it, but I'll look for it and then see if I can, maybe there'll be some information in there as well.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions or concerns from the subcommittee?
No, I think that's a good starting point. I was going to say the same thing. We should try and see what we can use as a template and get some material to review, and then have a full discussion of the issues. So no, I think that's the perfect way to go about it.
All right.
Okay.
So last point, other business. I wanted to just highlight that we did talk about in our first meeting in September about potentially having students be part of this subcommittee to be more of informing us, especially like from their experiences. And we wanted more of a diverse student population. So Sharon has reached out to Brockton Public School students that she's gotten a few references and a few references from the alternative schools as well. So we are hoping to have a student panel, in January, where we'll invite them to participate. And then I know Mike spoke a little bit about incorporating community and parents. So we haven't received any references yet, but if anybody, Mayor Sullivan, anybody has community members that you would like to reference for this subcommittee, that would be great to have that information and that perspective, and any parents. For sure. I specifically told Mike, I think it would be interesting to have parents that have students, either have had students enrolled in the alternative school or currently have students enrolled. So that's what I have for other business. Any other business?
If I could just add, all of the principals did give names of students, and I have reached out to them, and we have students who have responded. I've also had students who teachers recommended, having seen this meeting and thought it was important to share the information with students that they knew. So there are 6 students at this point who we have invited, one to watch this meeting tonight and to get a sense of the work that's happening with this committee and with the school committee, and then they will participate on a panel that we will devise some questions and some ideas for them, so that they don't come in cold and just talk about anything. They understand what it is that we're going to be asking of them, so that they can come prepared and be able to share their perspectives and experiences with us. And then we will be able to work with them ongoing in a variety of capacities as we move forward.
Thank you, Sharon, for adding that. And thank you to all the principals and teachers that have referred the students.
No, Cynthia, I'll just add that I believe either this week or early next week, Dr. Moran will be sending out, we were able to secure another 100 courses through eCornell. And this course will be, we last summer, we offered the 200 courses of the unconscious bias. And we had through eCornell, and they were all filled by educators. And that was all voluntary. So, we were thrilled that many educators took advantage of the course. We're going to offer 100 more free eCornell courses that will be sent out by Dr. Moran. And the courses, the name of the course is Diversity and Inclusion at Work. And that will be offered to up to 100 educators that want to take advantage of that. And we'll continue to work with eCornell to secure some more slots to offer it to even more people as we move through the rest of the year.
Do we have dates on those courses? And
Well, they wait for the signups. So we wait for the signups. We submit to Dr. Moran, submits the names to eCornell, and then they have to build the cohorts, because when you submit that many, they actually usually just build cohorts for us. And when I took the course, you ended up with cohorts from people, obviously, from when you do it just a single, then you go with people that are from all across the country. But when you're signing up 100 people, they usually do cohorts so they can line the professors up. So I'm pretty sure they'll do that again that way. So we don't have dates yet. So we have to get the signups first, and then eCornell will give us the dates.
Any other under other business? All right, thank you. So can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Boy, where's my friend Tony?
Second, sorry.
There you
Beat me
go.
to it.